Greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm going to talk about things in a different way, what's going on with Israel and Palestine to start off with here. And, over the years, I've gotten a lot of people who just hate Jewish people coming to my YouTube channel. There's a lot of that exist in the truth community. And maybe not hate them, but blame them for everything. Blame them for, like, for example, slavery. Say they have control over the economic system. When I talk about the controllers, they think about it being Zionist Jewish people, right? But the problem with that is that these people, in terms of this current modern day system, have been responsible for a lot of things that you use every day. And I've talked about this in the past, right? When you are, engaged in a system, I talked about this in my last video here, the one about how this, of course, the system's rigged, that when you engage with something, you got to take 100% of it, right? You can't take just the good things. Now, here's just a couple examples of that. Informal list of Jewish inventions and radical ideas. Things that they've invented: jeans, lipstick, the ballpoint pen, contraceptives, instant coffee, television remote control, traffic lights, Scotch Guard, and flex straw. They also invented lots of technological things, which I'll show you in a minute, in terms of all the stuff you're using with computers. People with Jewish ancestries have produced a lot of inventions that you use on a daily basis. Of course, the atomic bomb and these things, they say God, which they didn't invent God. Hollywood sitcom, long playing record, Woodstock, movies, videotape, color television, instant photography, and holography. Some of these other things, they didn't really invent monotheism in terms of the religious stuff. Capitalism, communism, circumcision, cheesecake, and cafeterias. Not all these inventions are great. Discount stores, pawn shops, things like that, right? Prozac and Valium, a lot of these, negative things that are part of the whatever it is, right? So some of these things are good. Some of them are things that you use on a daily basis. I mean, people have used these things for years, right? So they have all these inventions in terms of physics and chemistry and optics, medicine. Again, I'm not a fan of allopathic medicine, but a lot of the economic system that you depend on, and even though it's not a great economic system, but then all of a sudden, computer hardware, flash drive, all these various things you're using probably right now, processors, microchips, things like this. They are people who have done a lot in terms of these companies that now that you're using on your computer ID, all your computer devices, all these things, right? There's lots of these things that they are responsible for. And so, again, you have to take everything with it, right? You don't like their culture, you don't like them as people, but you're using the stuff that they invented. And you can say that they're responsible for the current economic system as well, right? There's 7.6 million Jews in America, I think 16 million worldwide. And that's 2.4% of the U.S. population. So they only make up 2% of the population, right? And yet there are people who blame them for all the ills of our society. Now, they've contributed a lot in terms of these inventions. Like I said, some of them good, some of them bad. But you have to take the bad with the good. There's 15.2 million Jews worldwide. So the majority of them, more than half of them, or about half of them, 7 million, are in America. They only make 0.2% of the 8 billion population worldwide. 0.2%. That's not 2%. 0.2%, right? And so they don't make up a full percentage of the worldwide population. So to blame them for everything, right? If they are able to rule the world, and again, like I have lots of people I've known in my life, Jewish people, who aren't a part of the global elite, right? Like all the people I grew up in my town, 40% of them were Jewish, West Hartford, Connecticut. And I don't think any of them were part of the global elite. at least the ones that I knew. So you're talking about a very small percentage. Do they have representation there? Sure. They have a strong lobbying group. I mean, they've been able to create Israel. They have influence, money, power, and things like this. So they do have influence, but they're not to blame for everything. And you can't blame a small percentage of the people. I mean, I say this even about the controllers. All of us have choices. We could collectively come together. If people can't collectively come together and resist the, small number of people controlling them, well, that's on the people, right? That's on all of us, right? That's on the, majority of people that can't get it together to see through the deception and to not be subjugated by a small group of people, whoever they are. So I want to talk about two things here. I saw this new show with Chris Wallace on CNN Saturday morning yesterday, Sunday, December 10th. So I saw this new show. And we'll get into that. I'll show you a little clip of the like an opening segment. I didn't know he had a show on CNN because what happened with CNN Plus, and I'll get into that in a moment. Well, how embarrassing it is for him. Chris Wallace he signed a huge contract with CNN. He's making $8 million a year, and he has a multi-year contract. I couldn't find the length. I think it's like 10 years or something. And he was the centerpiece of the disaster that was CNN Plus. And then they put him on Sunday night on CNN Max or something. I don't know, something to do with HBO. And then that all cratered, and now he's on Saturday mornings, right, just to get a sense of it. He's really unlikable, and he sucks at his job. He's annoying. He's kind of a weasel. And so this is like an absolute joke about why CNN would sign a guy who had a conservative following at Fox. MSNBC did the same thing with Megyn Kelly, and they both failed because people on CNN aren't into Chris Wallace, and nobody really is. The guy sucks, right? And so he's relegated to this horrible show. Let me show you the clip. Let me show you this first, and then we'll get into the two things I want to talk about here.
Who are ripping apart liberal America. Take a look at this. An airplane carrying the words "Harvard hates Jews" flying over the school's campus. The plane hired by a group of Jewish students to condemn what they call rabid anti-Semitism at Harvard. It's part of the growing backlash many progressives from college campuses to Capitol Hill are facing for failing to punish anti-Semitism and for downplaying Hamas atrocities against women. The presidents of Harvard, the University of Pennsylvania, and MIT grilled by lawmakers this week.
Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
What's the context?
Targeted at an individual.
She's going to go on to say genocide. So there's a lot here in this little piece. So Chris Wallace, unlikable and unwatchable. Like how he had a career. His dad was whatever that Wallace guy was on 60 Minutes. His dad was good. Chris Wallace has got a very annoying cadence in his voice. Very annoying. Little guy, right? Small little guy. Very obnoxious. And here he is on CNN Saturday morning, which is like nobody watches CNN in general, but then not on Saturday morning. So, like they're just moving him around because they signed him to this big contract. And he starts off with this piece. And it goes against what these people on CNN, the liberal democratic people, are feeling about Israel right now and what's happening with the Palestinian people, right? But you have this situation in Harvard where he said a group of students paid for an airplane to fly over the campus with the saying, "Harvard hates Jews." Now, the problem with this is that I've talked about this quite extensively. Negative suggestions and the way that your subconscious mind processes things. This is like a bumper sticker, which would have the reverse effect. It has the term hate Jews in what people are seeing. Subconsciously, that's what people are seeing, right? Harvard too, but it says hate Jews there, and it's pushing for that. Like, it's not a effective way of dealing with this or trying to get the message out. It is subconsciously pushing people towards that. I've been thinking about this on two levels, and there is historic negativity towards Jewish people in countries all around the world. And they've documented this and talked about it. And why is that, right? It can't be just one-sided. If everybody dislikes you as a person, like, I know why people don't like me, right? I know, I've dealt with, like, people in my family who have similar personality types, my brother, for example, and people like me, and I understand why people don't like me. I mean, I understand why. It's not a mystery to me. I know what's wrong with them, and I know why why I don't appeal to people. The people who don't like me understand the reasons they don't. In fact, I've been kind of shocked over the years that people do like me, like, despite, I don't make an effort with people. I'm introverted. I don't reach out to people, and, I just don't make an effort. I don't, it's not something that I look to cultivate, especially now here on this YouTube channel. I could do a much better job of being appealing to people. I could tell people what they want to hear. I could be less, brutally honest. I could soften. And I have softened my way of expressing myself over the years. It used to be worse, right? But even with that, people like me anyway. Like, it's kind of a weird thing for me. Because, like I said, I don't make much of an effort. If I say something that goes against somebody's beliefs and it hurts them, they take it personally, and they get mad at me, that's on them, because it's truth. Like, it's, maybe I do it in a bad way. Maybe I could be, better about it. Certainly I could. But the fact of the matter is that there's something in them that doubts their belief, that doubts what they believe. They have their own insecurities, whatever it might be. And for people who are insecure, they'd have a hard time watching my channel. People who are, doubtful or vulnerable and things like this. Because I'm going to say things inevitably that's going to bum them out. And that's on them. But in terms of making an effort and just being, I can be polite and nice in these things in a superficial way. When I first meet people, or just when I'm dealing with, like, just strangers or whatever it is. But in terms of family and old friends and things like this, I've made no effort. Like, I used to make more of an effort, and as I get older, I make less and less an effort to reach out and be available and, interact with people and do these things. I can say positive things to people. I can see positive things in people. I can build them up. But, I don't make the effort. And then just the things I say and the way I come across and, can be off-putting to people. And I'm saying this because there's always reasons why people don't like you. They have some legitimacy in their response, right? If people don't like you, some of it's on them, some of it's on you. And you have to determine what it is and whether you care to make changes, or whether you don't care whether people like you or not, right? Whether you're going to be popular, whether you're going to appeal to people. And the Jewish people talk about not being liked all the time. They talk about the Holocaust. They talk about, all these things. Anti-Semitism. They have they have the Anti-Defamation League and these organizations, powerful organizations that are there to talk about how Jewish people are hated. I mean, this is what's going on here. There's a big political movement. I mean, they had this on Capitol Hill. These people called up to Capitol Hill to talk about anti-Semitism. There's a lot of hate towards Muslims after the big event 2001, and the way that Muslims are being characterized as terrorists, this Islamophobia, as they call it. And there was lots of hatred towards Asian people post-COVID and other, there's Asian hate stuff, right? And I don't remember hearings for it, and not like this. Anti-Semitism is something that's talked about all the time, that there is this virulent hate towards Jewish people. And the media, which has a lot of influence, Jewish people influencing the media and politicians, Israel and the Jewish lobby has a strong hold on politicians. have pushed back against anti-Semitism, but it always backfires, right? Like these hearings are going to backfire, or all this stuff that's going on is going to backfire because they're not addressing the problem right now, and that is the genocide of Palestinian people. When they're talking about genocide of Jewish people, and that there's this desire for people to wipe them off the face of the earth, Muslim people in that area, but also Christian people and atheist and liberal people now who are, anti-Israel, and that's spilling over towards hatred of Jewish people. And instead of addressing why that might be, what's the real problem here, and owning up to their part in this, there is a victim consciousness about it, which I've talked about extensively. Putting this banner up at Harvard is not going to help a positive view of your people, of the demographic. The way they've been handling this, and this is what I'm talking about here. There's two things. I mean, as I started off the video, if you look at Jewish people in the modern day system, they've had probably as much influence as any other demographic in terms of cultural things that you see, TV, entertainment, media, the economic system, and things like this, social things as well as economic things, day-to-day inventions that you use, right? And people who are addicted to this system, which is basically everybody, people who are dependent on this system, use things that come from Jewish people. So where does the hatred come from? Now, there's this idea that it comes from Christians believing that Jews murdered Christ, but that's not Muslims. Muslims don't care about Christ, right? And then all the other people who aren't Christian. So there's this idea that Christian people have it in for Jews because they think that Jews murdered their Lord and Savior, although the crucifixion was something that needed to happen, right? It was a central piece. I mean, the cross is the symbol in Christianity. And the idea in the Christian tradition, the Bible, and again, I don't agree with the Bible, the New Testament, and the Old Testament in different ways. And I've talked about this extensively. It's an okay book, but there's a lot of disinformation in it and a lot of stuff that's not really divine. It doesn't help you connect to the divinity within you, which is, Jesus' best teaching was the kingdom of heaven lies within. But anyways, the crucifixion was essential. But also the problem with that idea is that evangelical Christians make up a lot of this support for Israel and Jewish people. They are very supportive of the country of Israel, and they believe that it's promised land. These evangelical Christians, I mean, these people who voted for George W. Bush, some of the people who are the most fervent Christians are very supportive of Jewish people in Israel. So the idea that some people believe that Jews are responsible for Jesus' death, well, that's, maybe part of it, but it can't be the whole thing. And the other thing that's going on currently, right now, is the way that this is being handled, the way they handled the thing with Kyrie Irving. Like, that was the first red flag. That backfired because I didn't know about the Anti-Defamation League. I never saw that guy. This is Jeffrey Greenblatt or whatever his name is, the guy who runs the Anti-Defamation League, but he's very unlikable. He's toxic. And now I have a negative opinion about that group. I've heard a lot about it, people talking about it in the truth community, but I never knew anything about them. But I did after the Kyrie Irving thing. Kyrie Irving already had a lot of support because he stood up to the bloop, right, all that stuff. And so that backfired in lots of different ways. It backfired within the African American community. But the way they went about it would generate more hate for Jewish people, right? And why is that? Is that intentional? Because I always look at the outcome of something. Whatever the results are is what your intentions were. Because people lie about their intentions. People say they want to be successful, and then they do things to fail all the time. They say they want to, find love, and then they pursue people who are incapable of love, right? People say one thing, but their goals are whatever the results are what their true goals are, right? What they truly believe about themselves, or what they truly want out of life, whatever it is. What's essential inside of them, what's their essential building blocks as a human being. They might fake like they believe in something, and yet they constantly do things to sabotage themselves, hurt themselves, undermine with their goals and the things that they say they want. And so if I have to judge somebody's words as opposed to their actions and their results, it's their actions and results. Like that is the defining, that is whatever happens at the end is what you really wanted, what you really are about, right? Whether you know or understand it yourself, right? But the way they're handling this Palestinian thing and the anti-Semitism thing is backfiring. It's just pissing people off more and creating more of what they say they don't want. And the victim consciousness, it just doesn't work, especially now. And it's a time of truth. It's a time of, people being honest and constantly claiming you're a victim. And I've talked a bit about this idea. If you believe that you're God's chosen people, then everything comes from God. You're not a victim if you rely on God, if God is there for you. If you believe that God is controlling your existence, then everything comes from God. And you can't be a victim then, because if you're going to be mad at God. If you're being treated in such a way, it's because God is treating you in such a way. I mean, it's the same thing with Jesus. So Jesus isn't a victim. If God he's accepted God as the Father. Again, he isn't the only Son of God, but he accepted God as the Father. Then everything he got came from God, right? Or his own actions as results of his own actions. So Jesus isn't a victim or a martyr. God gave him what he needed, right? God gave him what he needed to evolve spiritually. It maybe was painful on a material level, but it was good for him spiritually. So these are the ways to view things like that, right? Victim consciousness doesn't exist if you believe there's a God and God has a plan. If God has a plan, then God's in control. It's not random. And being a victim is something random. Something happens to you that is outside of God's plan and outside of any sort of plan. It's just chaos and random. Something happens that you don't deserve. Something happens that your soul didn't sign off on. Then you came down here and things happen to you that are brutal. But this is a brutal planet. It's a savage planet, carnivorous. And we see what happens in the animal kingdom and what happens in the human condition. Human beings are demented and warped and psychologically messed up, and they do all kinds of aberrant behaviors, demonic behaviors, and that's something that we've created here. And whatever part of it you play, whatever way that you're involved in that, is something that is connected to you. I've talked about some scars in the past, in past lives and things. All of those things, right? Victim consciousness doesn't really exist as a truth. And pushing it out there to manipulate things and get things for yourself, and then also push this idea that you're special in some way, always is going to have a negative effect. And that's what's happening now. They're creating more anti-Semitism. Their campaign that they're pushing out here to stamp out anti-Semitism is really creating more anti-Semitism. Why is that? Why are they doing that? Because the results are there. It's not getting better, it's getting worse. And so let's go to this other video clip, or at least these two videos I want to show you here. So one of my viewers sent me a couple of videos, and I'm not going to be able to show them. They would certainly be demonetized. But these thugs come in, and they beat the crap out of these Jewish people here, who are, I guess, maybe Hasidic Jews. I'm not sure. They have this, the hairdos and whatever it is. But these people are supportive. The Jewish people are supportive of the Palestinian people, and they are protesting for Palestinian rights. And the Jewish police or military come in. Israeli police, right? These are, this is Israel. I'm editing. But yeah, this is the Israeli police, and they don't look Jewish at all. They look like big, like American thugs. And they come in and they just rough these guys up. It's pretty brutal. And, all this hate is being perpetrated against the Jewish people. These are the people that, will be hated upon, right? The people who look very Jewish, right? People who are wearing, having these hairdos and the Jewish, Hasidic Jews, the people who you see them and you go, oh, those are definitely Jewish people. where these thugs, these guys with crew cuts and big muscular guys who are, violent, are, the ones that are perpetrating the crimes against the Palestinian people, right? And then you have again, a bunch of these Jewish dressed people, Hasidic Jews, and they're yelling Nazis at these. They're calling these guys. One young person calls these guys Hitler. The military comes in, and this seems to be a place where it's a Palestinian territory, and there's a Palestinian flag, and they come in to take the Palestinian flag being flown by these Jewish people. There's some young Jewish girls who are holding Palestinian flags, small ones, and they get into it with the military, and they're really anti-military. I mean, they're hating them, calling them Nazis, and this one's anti-Zionist Jewish community flying Palestinian flags in Jerusalem. And there's a lot of people in Israel who are anti-Zionist, and these are the people who are going to take the brunt of the hate, of the anti-Semitism that's being, I can only say that it's being done intentionally, and these are the people that are going to suffer from that, right? I was going to put more in this video. There's always a question of being demonetized when covering this war. And I'm confused, and I'm usually not, by YouTube's policies. They're getting goofier. But anyways, I wrote a workbook on this about goal setting and achieving goals. And sometimes you work hard to achieve goals, but your soul isn't backing the goal. So you have to find out what your soul wants. You have to align with your soul and God's purpose for you. If you have a goal that is not what your soul's purpose is, that goal is going to be hard to achieve, if not impossible. And it's never going to be, no matter how much you achieve, you're always going to be dissatisfied because you're on the wrong path. And so achievement of any kind of a goal has to first align with your soul's path and your divine essence and what God wants for you, right? The plan, your spiritual plan, your soul's plan. Your soul has a plan for your life before you come down here. People who are famous and rich and successful, that's part of their soul's plan for them. They're usually immature souls, or they're playing some other role, some spiritual role. Occasionally you'll have a saint who's a politician or it's a higher developed soul that's playing a role of a famous person. But most higher developed souls don't become famous and rich and things like this because it's counterproductive to their work, and it could easily divert them from their path, right? But I'm good at understanding this kind of stuff. It's pattern recognition stuff. It's stuff that once I realized and I could see it, it became obvious to me in my own life and the lives of other people. And so I can assess what people's soul's path and what their intentions are and what they're all about as a spiritual being based in the outcome of their life, right? There's some scaras, the things that they needed to do. And I understand goal setting and goal achievement and the results of somebody's work and how you achieve something. Because people say they have a goal. And let's say you have a goal. Then you have to come up with a plan to achieve that goal. And most people's ability to plan and achieve goals suck. They end up doing the exact opposite. And so they say they want to achieve a goal, but then they sabotage that goal by the plan they put in place to achieve that goal, right? And so if the goal of the Jewish people, the power structure in the Jewish community in Israel is to gain support, they're going about it the worst possible way. And it's backfiring. And the things that they used to do aren't working anymore. Nobody listens to the media. People don't trust the media anymore. They don't trust politicians, and they don't trust the old heads, the old guard. And bribing people on TikTok isn't going to work either, right? Putting pressure, censoring, doing all these things, that's all going to backfire. Everything they're doing, flying banners over Harvard, everything they're doing is backfiring, and anti-Semitism is going to grow. And I'm not supporting that. I'm just saying that's what's happening. That's what's going to happen based on the actions that they're taking. And it's going to grow to these people who are, average people, who are normal people that have, happen to be Jewish, that have normal middle-class lives and that are out there in the public, and they're the ones that are going to be, hated upon. Some of them are anti-Zionists, and they're the ones that are going to be hated upon, right? Not the people who run the system, not the beaties and the people with money power behind behind the curtain. And so, what's going on here? Why is that happening? Why are they doing that? Why are they making it worse? And why are they? It seems like they are serving up the Jewish people as a scapegoat for what's about to happen economically in these other ways, right? And that's why you don't get emotionally involved in these things. This is why detachment is key. Because whatever you're seeing is being manipulated. They're manipulating you. And if they are able to sway you on, the genocide that's happened to the Palestinian people, and they make you hate, it turns into, not make you hate, but it activates the hate within you, which I talk about so much, and then you hate upon these Jewish people, you're falling into their plan because this is obviously their goal. It's obviously their goal to do this because they're going about it where there's only one thing that's going to happen, and that's going to be the American people specifically, because half the global Jewish people are here in America, and now they're being turned on, right? Another example of this is Kennedy. Now, Kennedy was talking about how in that original interview with the rabbi that was the dong blesser, right? The dildo blesser. He his daughter has that sells sex toys, kosher sex toys. That guy, when Kennedy interviewed with him, and that's like aging. It was bad when he did it, and it's aging really poorly. But he talked about how there are 3 Palestinian Supreme Court justices and how liberty and freedom are so valued in Israel. And you can see these soldiers coming out and, over a flag being flown, or people protesting, Jewish people protesting the government's treatment of the Palestinian people and how they're brutalized. And, you can see this. I mean, it's not just there. There's so many videos that used to exist and things that I've seen that have either been scrubbed or I don't know how to find them. But people are posting about the mistreatment of the Palestinian people years and years ago. It's often Jewish people that are posting it, right? And this is, Kennedy, who came out with a good game plan. He knew about truther narratives, and he believed in them, or at least could sell people that he believed in them. And he hit the truther circuit, starting with, Joe Rogan. And I'm not categorizing people as truthers, alternative media people, right? People who don't agree with the official story, because that's a vast audience. And he was going around and he was hitting the podcast, and he was doing a good job. He was saying things. He was interesting. He was compelling as a candidate. And then he just torpedoed his candidacy by saying these things that are so easily to disprove about Israel's treatment of Palestine, right? And it's just another example of someone sabotaging their stated goal. If his stated goal was to get elected, well, he's done. He can't, he's already killed his candidacy. So why did he do that? Does he hate himself, or is there some other agenda here, right? And that's something for everyone to kind of be aware of, because the outcome and the actions always are, the results of what a person's really about and who they are. I just got sent this, there's a dodgy truther guy who's a preceptor and a practitioner of Sajmark system. And he's been sending me stuff. I kind of met him once. I met his wife. We had been friends on Facebook for a while, but really didn't know him. But he's an dodgy person. And their dodgy did a Zoom call with European people, and he said some weird stuff, like have a candlelight dinner with the master, but the master's not there physically. Like he's have a date with the master. He's weird stuff, like weird stuff. And then he talks about how he's just enhancing the system, and he's responding to a letter some European guy sent him. I do the Sajmark meditation practice. But anyways, I just started to get into that, like in the middle of making this video. And so, but he's a self-sabotaging person, right? If he wanted to be successful, he would have went about everything in a different way. And he's failed, and he can't admit his failure, but his failure is there for everyone to see, right? And if you fail, you wanted to fail, or your soul wanted you to fail. It was a goal that you should have never engaged in the first place. But the results of your actions are there. And whatever's going on with Israel, or with Kennedy, or with Dodgy, is a result of their true essence and what they're really trying to achieve here. and it's not what they say, because it's, they're counterproductive. Like Israel says that they want to end anti-Semitism, and then they do things to make people dislike them even more, right? And then you have with Kennedy says he wants to be president, and then he torpedoes his candidacy. And Dodgy says he wants to be a good master, or wants to enhance the Sizemore system, and then he just does things to destroy it, right? Like these are the words mean one thing, but the results mean something else. The results indicate that your words are full of boop, that you're just either lying to us or lying to yourself, or both. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.